Hey YouTube, Puff and Snuff here. Ian checking in as always from beautiful Northeast Ohio. If you've been watching this channel lately, you know that the current project is these kind of back-to-back tandem joint snuff reviews that I'm doing with Chris over at In a Pinch. And this will be this week's weekly installment. It is another Snus review. And this time around we are talking Mustang Original from Swedish Match. Just to kind of back up as a reminder, although we are reviewing the same product, uploading on the same day to give two different opinions on the product, we're not comparing notes. We haven't discussed this ahead of time, aside from the logistics of what we're going to review and when we're going to post it. For my part, I am doing no background research on this. I'm not reading other reviews. I'm not even looking at pricing, any of that. So there's no outside influence. Um, I do try to use about half of a can before I do the review, just so that I've developed something of an opinion and it's not kind of a review at first taste sort of thing. If you are interested in what some other people have said, and especially important information like pricing if you're going to buy these things and what they cost online, and more background on the blend, make sure you check out Chris's video. I'm sure it'll be in there. He's included a lot of that information in our reviews of Lenny's and Odin's. So definitely check him out. As always, the link to his channel will be down in the description. So after you watch this, head over and see what he had to say. So on with the show. First things first, let's talk about the can. To me, it's a pretty nondescript can. I don't know. I personally don't find the can to be all that remarkable or attractive. It strikes me as being kind of a dull, boring uh, design for whatever that's worth. Obviously, what's beneath the lid is a lot more important than what the lid looks like itself. But this just kind of reminds me of, I'm not a cigarette guy, but you go to the convenience store, the drugstore, the grocery store, and they've always, they got the rack of cigarettes behind the counter there. Some packages just stand out. They look a little more, I guess, classy to the extent that cigarettes are classy. Like some of the Marlboro packs of tobacco, especially the ones they're using now that have like the black labels, or like the Benson and Hedges, I think are just really attractive looking cigarette packs. They're simple, but they're simple in a very classy, classic sort of way. Then you have the other ones. One that springs to mind is Basic. If you're familiar with Basic cigarettes, equally simple, but to me more of a generic blah, bland kind of simple. Um, and this, where I thought, say, the Lenny's can was very simple, but in a classic strong sort of way, this to me is just really eh. Um, but that's the can. And of course, it has the little convenience well down here for the spent portions when you're done with them. So one thing before we get to the tobacco itself, and again, I don't know what this means in terms of price point. I don't know what the price per portion works out to be because I haven't looked up the price of the damn thing. But there are 22 portions in this can, which is certainly more than the Lenny's, and I believe more than the Odin's, and definitely more than the General Snus, which is what I buy locally for everyday use. So you do get a little more. You get a few more portions out of a can of Mustang than some of the others. So, and it does say on the back there are 22 grams in total. 22 grams and 22 portions. I'm not a math scholar, but that would lead me to believe that these portions are going to be about a gram apiece. So, opening up the can, first let's talk about the aroma. It's pleasant. You know right away this is not going to be kind of a super traditional snus because I get really no bergamot out of this, so you're not getting that that kind of Earl Grey vibe going. There is some good, tobacco is dark and deep. It's not overly briny. It's not overly fermenty in the way that some of the really, really dark tobaccos are, but it is a dark tobacco aroma. I can get some citrus in the aroma and something fruity. Um, and, important to note when I say fruity, I don't mean candied fruit. This isn't, to me, a Jolly Rancher kind of aroma. It's just something vaguely fruity, and it's a darker fruit, I think. Um, a dark cherry or some sort of stone fruit, something like that. But it's a pleasant smell. Um, yeah, the portions themselves are relatively moist. You can see coming out they are they're not necessarily dripping wet, but they are quite moist, and they are pretty plump portions. They're nice and fluffy, nice and light, um, which would suggest that they're going to be very comfortable up in the lip, and they are. Um, so getting down to the real meat of the thing, let's talk about the flavor and how this snus behaves in the mouth. I've had one in for about 15-20 minutes here, so I'm not going to pop one in for you, but it's in there. And first of all, yes, they are very comfortable. Super soft, nice and moist, really relaxing against the gum. There's no irritation. It doesn't want to shift around. There's no dryness. Very, very pleasant physically. As to the snus itself, but not super strong in nicotine. It's in there. You can tell it's in there. I did kind of double barrel one of these a couple nights ago, 1 and 1, and I hadn't eaten a whole heck of a lot lately, and I kind of got the hiccups a little bit. So, granted, empty stomach, double dose, but under those conditions, certainly the nicotine was present. So, I wouldn't call it a lightweight. I don't know that it is um, a nicotine bomb by any stretch. I thought the Lennies, and again, I haven't looked these up. I may be completely wrong in terms of milligrams of nicotine per portion, but I certainly felt like the Lennies was stronger than the Mustang. Uh, as to the flavor, the first thing that you get is um, tobacco, and it is that semi-rich, dark, um, earthy, not necessarily briny, but that earthy, slightly salty uh, tobacco taste. There's a little bit of pepper in there, not nearly as much as in some of the other snoozes that I've had, including the ones that I've reviewed on this channel before, but it's in there. Sometimes you have to go searching for it, but you can find it. After just a few minutes, the that fruitiness starts to come on, and it's super pleasant. It's not overly sweet. It's not obtrusive. It never really gets in the way of the tobacco flavor for me, and it is exactly what you smell in the can. It's a dark cherry, plummy, pruny, dark fruity um, kind of sweetness, and in my opinion, not only in this particular snus, but in snoozes and snuffs in general, I'm always a big fan of the dark tobacco flavor combined with a natural dark fruit kind of essence, and that's what's in here. And it really does work. It really is pleasant. It's not outstanding. I did this. Nothing about this snus has knocked my socks off to where I'm dying to order a few rolls of the stuff and always have it on hand. But it's good. Um, it'd be an excellent, to me, kind of change of pace snooze. Something to, if you've been using Odin's or General or any of the very bergamot forward snoozes, just to kind of change of pace, break it up, try something new. Um, yeah, it's good. One thing that I thought was kind of surprising is the aroma. There's something lemony and citrusy going on. I get virtually none of that from the flavor. After it's been in the mouth for maybe a half an hour or more, something citric will just kind of pop up just a little bit and just kind of say hello. Um, but it's not nearly as present or as strong as the tin aroma kind of led me to think it would be, which is surprising. Um, there's also something as it's in there a little longer. About the same time the lemon pops its head up, something vaguely floral kind of shows up. I can't put my finger quite on what it is, but it kind of makes for that late stage of the portion. Gets a little more complex, and the tobacco-ness never goes away. The fruitiness will subdue over time, and I wonder if it's maybe because whatever in there contributes to the fruit flavor is used in a much higher proportion than whatever is the citrus and the floral, that it really is obscuring those citric floral essences that are in here, and you don't really get a chance to experience them until um, that fruitiness starts to lose its punch. Um, but once I kind of hit the 25-minute, half hour, 35-minute mark, somewhere in there, the snus does change a little bit, and you do start to get some of these other elements that are in there. On the downside, while those begin to kind of pop up, the pepperiness, which I really, really enjoy in a snus, is that peppery quality you get with a lot of the dark tobaccos. That fades to almost nothingness. So there's some good and some bad as time wears on. You do get some more of the stuff that adds to the blend, but then you do start to lose some of the stuff that made it as good as it is when you first put it in. Um, Overall, I'm going to call it a 6 out of 10. Like I have already said, it's not something that I'm, going to kick down doors to get a hold of, but it's something that if the price is right, it's a good way to kind of change things up. The biggest negative that I will say, besides the horribly unoriginal can, is, and part of this is my fault, I tend to leave portions in an awful lot longer than necessary, and probably an awful lot longer than is recommended for enjoyment. But frankly, especially something like this, which is so, for whatever shortcomings it has, can't say enough how comfortable and soft this is. I forget that it's in after a certain amount of time. I'm just so used to it being there, and it feels so natural that once you kind of hit the hour and a half, 2 hour mark, if you've left it in that long, um, where most snoozes just ultimately go flavorless, and it's like having a flavorless pouch of uh, goo stuck in your lip. This becomes quite bitter. So there is a point where you can have too much of a good thing, and if you're a long snoozer, this can get a little rough on you at the end. And on the bright side, um, it's kind of the snooze's way of telling you, yeah, time to take it out and move on. So make of that what you will. As always, your mileage is going to vary on these things. Um, wouldn't recommend going out and buying it just to try it, but if you're placing an order for some snus anyway, have a few extra bucks, want to try something new. Um, if nothing else, it's an inoffensive blend. I don't think there's anything in here that's going to be a specific turnoff. So that's it. Of the three I've done, while they've all been enjoyable in their own right, I would certainly consider this the bronze medal winner, behind the Lennies and the Odins for sure. But what else? Anything else? I think that's it, right? I think we covered everything, and I'm pretty sure that I've reached that point where we are rambling for the sake of rambling. So that is all. Once again, check out the link down there. Pop over to Chris's channel, see what he has to say about this stuff, and hopefully soon we will have a live video where we will both be talking and both be recorded, reviewing at the same time rather than just near simultaneous uploads. Um, but certainly you can count on a handful more of these Snus reviews to follow, and then who knows what's in the works. So, guys, that's all for me. Have a good one. Take it easy.